These are the Get Over Yourself podcast sponsors. Mofo, male optimization formula with organs to boost testosterone naturally. B.rad's macadamia masterpiece, a mind-blowing nut butter blend. Carol Fit, stationary bike, awesome 8-minute workout. Organifi, whole food organic superfood supplements and drink blends. Perfect Keto, the cleanest, highest potency ketone supplements. Bilyeu clothing, fashionable, functional, incredibly comfortable performance apparel. And please visit the bradkearns.com shop page for my personal selection of favorite products for health, fitness, and peak performance. And here we go with the show. The critical hours of the evening from 12 to 3 a.m. These are the critical hours where the remnants of mammalian hibernation lie for our species. These are the anabolic times for sleep when we are rebuilding our proteins and recycling our cellular contents. No whining, no complaining, and no excuses. See if you can make it through one day without resorting to any of these. This forces you to be accountable even if you're right and they're wrong. Number 1, remember that you will die. Number 2, value your time more than your own possessions. Number 3, be ruthless to things that don't matter. Number 4, put your day up for review. Hello and welcome to the Breather Show, insights from the experts. And this is part 3 in the wonderful series on a new topic of health optimization, biohacking, that kind of stuff. And I have a bunch of quick tidbits from different people I think you're going to really love. Let's start with the YouTube sensation, Tom Bilyeu. His channel is called Impact Theory, and he has interesting interviews with experts from all walks of life with millions of views. All those viewers can't be wrong. It is really good quality stuff, and he's an interesting guy that's had a great life journey himself. Here's his quick opinion about the secret to happiness. Quote, work your ass off at something you care very deeply about to get very good so that you can serve not only yourself, but others. Hey, that's pretty good. Let's paint that on the wall at a college recreation center or something, huh? For the students to reflect upon. Work your ass off at something you care very deeply about to get very good so that you can serve not only yourself, but others. That's happiness all around. Your destiny. You can't lose if you go on that route. Thank you very much, Tom. Next is from Dave Asprey's book, Game Changers. A little tidbit about brain science, brain research. Our brain likes to engage in the familiar to save energy. When you build good habits, you free up more energy to work on the peak performance creative stuff. Tiger Woods, under pressure, says, do the exact same thing, don't change a thing. So walk the same pace on the golf course, do the same number of practice swings, engage with your caddy in the same manner. But so often you see athletes under pressure choke because they leave their familiar routine and try to do something different just due to the increasing intensity of the circumstances. And that can always be a mistake. And I think this has a lot of application to everyday normal life. I'm thinking of my morning flexibility, mobility, core strengthening, leg strengthening yoga routine that I'm so enthusiastic about. I filmed an entire YouTube video to show you exactly what I do every day. It has multi-dimensional benefits to my life. Obviously, it elevates the fitness platform from which I launch all other workouts because I know the first 30 minutes of my day are going to be proceeding through this pretty challenging routine, increasingly challenging routine that's building flexibility, mobility, injury prevention, strength, balance, all that good stuff. It's also contributing to my daily movement quota. Because if I get busy and don't do a formal workout, have a lot of periods of stillness as the day runs its course, at least I know I knocked out a half an hour first thing. But I think the more profound intangible psychological benefits are something that I'd like to share in this context here. Because if I can be a creature who gets up as a creature of habit and does this every single day without a second thought, without having to exercise any of that precious willpower that I can save for other things, without having to exercise any creative energy, because again, I do the exact same thing every day. I count to the same numbers. My brain is not occupied with getting clever and creative as I might during another workout where I'm deciding which trail to take on my bicycle or which implement to challenge myself with next in the gym, whatever. If I can just do this sort of robotic morning pattern, I believe it sets me up to be a more focused and disciplined person throughout the day. So back to Dave's quote, jumping right back, Tiger Woods doing the same thing when he's under pressure in a golf tournament. The brain will tend toward down wiring to save energy. So you have to be intentional about creating new habits. Otherwise, you will slip into old habits. So what he means there, I believe, is you build this good habit, you build that good habit, you establish some dietary parameters. You don't have to bring in willpower and creativity into the mix. For example, you just know that you don't consume sugary beverages or refined industrial seed oils. So with those things a given, you're no longer faced with a choice of whether or not to eat those and to tempt yourself or to drift off your A game because you were tired at the end of a long day or because you were traveling or because of whatever reason. If they're out of your diet, banned from your diet, they're simply banned. It's like the person on the airplane who's offered a bag of peanuts who has a severe peanut allergy. They just shake their head no. They don't look at them and go, what brand? Are they fresh? Do I feel like it? None of that happens. And so if we just build in a ton of good habits, hey, guess what? If the brain does tend toward down wiring to save energy, maybe we are going to float into the no man's land where we're not being super disciplined and productive and on our A game all the time. I know I have certain evenings where I just allow myself to relax and watch whatever shows on there, even if it's not my all-time favorite. I'm just kind of relaxing, maybe enjoying some social interaction, watching with other people, giving my work ethic and competitive intensity a little break. But hey, guess what? When that clock strikes 10:30, I have built a highly disciplined habit of going off and going to sleep. And that's because I experience so much pain and suffering the next day when I miss my bedtime and don't get optimal sleep. I might be a wussy boy in this category, but I really love my sleep. And it would take an extremely special occasion to have me bypass my program bedtime in favor of, let's say it was a special occasion, a party, a super incredibly fantastic movie, or whatever it is that I choose to carry on into the later evening than I'm used to. But the takeaway point here is that maybe the previous 1 or 2 hours were just relaxing and letting go and letting the brain down wire, and then kicking right back into the program habit that frames my day optimally. Okay, so that was a cool tidbit from Game Changers. And then another one, he talks about a meta moment, I guess a breakthrough, a transformational moment, is the space between the stimulus and your reactive response. Instead of triggering anger, evaluate why a certain statement made you feel bad and then respond with intention. Taking that breather. Was it Dr. Ron Sina on his show wants his patients to take 5 deep breaths before they respond in any way, and just getting a habit of doing that. Hey, maybe then you're going to go ahead and respond back to the person out the window like that cut you off, and you do have some choice feedback for them. But if you can build up that talent to take 5 deep breaths before responding, especially in heated interactions with loved ones or people where filtering your true self or your true behavior, that can be really valuable and kind of elevate the basis of the relationship interaction to be more respectful, more intentional. Dr. Jack Cruz tidbit coming up next, a little teaser for way more content that I share on the Breather shows that I did honoring his work. And this little tidbit comes from a lengthy article where he talks in detail about your circadian rhythm. So a 24-hour article checking in at different time frames about what's going on hormonally and genetically. And we want to talk about the critical hours of the evening from 12 to 3 a.m. These are the critical hours where the remnants of mammalian hibernation lie for our species. These are the anabolic times for sleep, when we are rebuilding our proteins and recycling our cellular contents. They are 3 of the most important hours in all of human biology. If you miss them, you can bet that you have several Neolithic diseases for sure. Why, you may ask? Because if these 3 hours are not optimized during the sleep cycle, autophagy is never optimized and cellular repair does not occur sufficiently in our cells. This means we are using old broken down parts in our cells as the next day arrives at 6 a.m. and cortisol spikes again to wake us up. Way more detail on our circadian function during the Jack Kruse breather shows. Here's an insight on electromagnetic fields from a discussion with Dr. Joe Mercola, the popular author and website purveyor at Mercola.com. And of course, Tommy Wood, one of the popular guests on the Get Over Yourself podcast. We had 3 shows in a row way back. So listen to all those about general healthy lifestyle tips from a really balanced and measured perspective that Tommy's known for. Here's the talk about EMF. EMF exposure is millions orders of magnitude greater than a century ago. Obviously, since we didn't have all the technology that's emitting signals these days. We didn't have those back then. We don't know certain effects on humans. Well, we do know that rates of autism have risen from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 68 in a very short time, a few generations. Alzheimer's is now headed toward a statistic of 1 in 2. And this is going to happen during our lifetime. 1 in 2 of us is going to suffer from dementia, Alzheimer's, related cognitive decline conditions. Experts believe that is strongly associated with the environmental pollution, especially EMF, and also our crappy modern diet, particularly the excess consumption of sugar and excess insulin production. They are now calling Alzheimer's. This was a nickname coined by Alzheimer's researcher Dr. Suzanne Delamonte from Brown University, who nicknamed it type 3 diabetes, because Alzheimer's and related conditions are characterized by dysfunctional glucose metabolism in the brain. Right? All the cells in the body are traumatized by the excessive consumption of carbohydrates, that excess glucose floating around in the bloodstream. You develop these things called advanced glycation end products. That's when excess glucose molecules attach to important structural proteins throughout the body and wreak havoc on their healthy cellular function. Guess which cells are most vulnerable? It's the longest lasting cells in the body. So we have the cardiovascular system, we have the kidneys, we have the retina, we have the brain. That's why type 1 diabetics are routinely suffering from vision and kidney problems. So the brain cells, the brain neurons, are the most sensitive of any cell to dysfunction, such as excess insulin production, excess inflammation, and oxidative stress from consuming that high carbohydrate, high insulin producing diet. And therefore, we are headed toward type 3 diabetes unless we transform our diets to avoid both type 2 and type 3 diabetes. If you're not afraid of type 2, and I guess a lot of us aren't, because there's 100, 200 million Americans who are classified as pre-diabetic, at least be afraid of type 3, because it does not seem like a fun way to go toward the end of life, to lose your cognitive functioning. Okay, and on the Brian Hoyer show, I go into detail. He was the EMF expert that I interviewed, so go listen to that show if you're interested. Here's some suggestions from Mercola to battle EMF radiation during jet travel, because the confined metal space up in the sky is a great source of electromagnetic radiation. So he wants you to fast on the day of your flight, because when you're in a fasted state, remember, your internal antioxidant production is boosted, and you have therefore a more protective state when you get on the plane. Your cellular repair and detoxification is optimized. That's the process of autophagy that we strongly associate with fasting. So fasting on your travel days is a great idea. He also suggests doing a high-intensity workout before you head out on your plane flight, so you will deplete glucose. Then you will start boosting ketone production, and that's especially helpful in the brain, a much cleaner burning fuel source than glucose. So fun times. Get on that plane, depleted from your high intensity workout, cranking out those ketones in a fasted state, autophagy. I like to fast during travel. Mark Sisson helped me understand this insight because it helps with adjusting to the new time zone, which I've always had huge problems with. I don't know, compared to what, but I used to travel to the races in Europe or Australia, and I'd just be zonked out for a week in Europe, trying to stay awake during the day, taking a nap, and it turns out to be a 4.5 hour power nap, and then staying up all night. And it was always very stressful to my body. I couldn't adapt well to time zones. But if you can fast for the duration of your trip, within reason, right? If it's a 13-hour flight, you might get too hungry. You might have to eat something. But if you can fast until you arrive at your destination and then consume meals on target with the time zone that you want to adapt to, your transition is going to be much quicker and more complete and efficient, because the digestive circadian rhythm is strongly tied to your overall circadian rhythm. So if you wake up in the morning, let's say get that digestive tract started at 8 a.m. with a smoothie or a small amount of calories if you're not used to it, but then that'll help you kind of get awakened and energized for the busy day if it's a new time zone. So a good tip there. And then Mercola also adds the idea of taking a huge dose of exogenous ketones in conjunction with your travel. Another fantastic idea. So you'll get that ketone production guaranteed, reliably so, while you are traveling and subject to extra EMF exposure. And Perfect Keto, go look at their website. Go to bradkearns.com shopping page. You can get the great discount. I think it's buy one and get the second one for 40% off. And I've been using their brain neurotropic in the morning, and it's a really nice blend. It tastes great, just mixed in hot water, and gives you a nice boost to get your brain function on target for a busy day. All right, that's enough from Mercola on the Tommy Wood and Brian Hoyer. A lot of people weighing in about the dangers of EMF. Definitely something to pay attention to. I know I get fatigued with my to-do list of all the health practices that I have to stay on top of. But if you can at least make a basic effort to minimize your EMF exposure, that's going to be a nice thing. Pete Carroll coming in next, the famous football coach of the Seattle Seahawks, and he has 3 rules for a healthy, successful organization. So those of us immersed into organizational life in our careers, maybe this stuff can really help. Number 1, always protect the team. And he's, of course, talking about his Seahawks football team. So let's see how this reference applies to you and your life and the groups that you're part of. You're representing yourself and your team at all times in every interaction. So he reminds his Seahawks that they are Seahawks, not only on the football field, but in the clubs late at night, on the airplane, interacting with the public, whatever. And the same is true. This is, again, relevant to everybody, for your personal reputation, your family name, and for groups that you're part of. Oh, that's such great advice. I remember my father emphasizing that point when I was really young, that your most precious asset is your name, your reputation in the community. And I think about that with people who, for example, blow me off and don't answer my emails. Not everyone owes me an answer. So I'm not talking about when I hit up Cardi B to come sing at Mia Moore's birthday party and she owes me a no. No. I'm talking about people that you've interacted with, that you've created value for. You've had great interaction back and forth. You've given and served them, and then they can't be bothered to even write you back. That is a tarnishing their own name and their own reputation, at least in my mind. And if they don't care, that's fine too. But remember, when you walk around and interact, your name will never leave you, will never escape you. Okay. That's a good one. So that was number 1. Always protect the team and always protect your personal reputation. 1A. Number 2, Pete Carroll, no whining, no complaining, and no excuses. See if you can make it through one day without resorting to any of these. This forces you to be accountable, even if you're right and they're wrong. It's not necessary to dive into negativity. Learn the lesson and move on. Number 3, be early. Being early demonstrates a high regard for yourself and for others. When you arrive early, it shows that you have done the necessary preparation, prioritization, discipline, and focus, that you have your shit together. Carroll says that he chose the word regard very carefully, as this proves that you have self-respect as well as respect for others. This one hit me particularly hard because I'm not known as a person who's punctual. I don't know, personality insight or behavior patterns that have been ingrained that I'm not proud of. And when you realize that being early demonstrates a high regard for yourself and for others. So whatever being late says about me and whatever excuse I have to come up with for the reason I'm late to this or that, it still shows disrespect for the other person's time. So working on it, trying really hard. And then when you realize the distinction between being early and being on time, that's a huge distinction there, because when you have the goal of being on time, then you can run around trying to be on time and then, sorry, I'm late. The traffic was surprisingly difficult and therefore I'm late. But if your goal is to be early and little things creep up that delay you unexpectedly, guess what? You're going to show up on time instead of late. So love Pete Carroll's admonition to be early rather than being on time. And we're going to end up with some insights from Gordo Byrne. I've done a full show on stuff from his wonderful blog that you can find, Family, Fitness, and Finances. This is a list of 6 time management techniques from the ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca, who's risen into prominence lately. Ryan Holiday, Tim Ferriss, big fans. And so now we're hearing about this old stuff as fresh and new. Okay. But this is what inspired Gordo to leave his desk job 20 years ago. Whew. All right. Number 1, remember that you will die. Number 2, value your time more than your own possessions. Number 3, be ruthless to things that don't matter. Number 4, put your day up for review. Number 5, do it now. And number 6, realize what time off is for. Rest actively, not idly. Oh, okay. This list appeared in the Daily Stoic newsletter in 2020, and I think Gordo saw it, wrote about it in recent times, but is referencing that these same ideas were what prompted him to leave his job 20 years ago. And he says numbers 1, 2, and 3 led to number 4 becoming a life review rather than a day review. So remember, number 1, remember you'll die. Number 2, value your time more than your possessions. Number 3, be ruthless to things that don't matter. And number 4 was put your day up for review. So he's saying that reflecting on number 1, 2, and 3 led to a life review and realizing back when that he could see where his choices were going to take him over the ensuing 10 years. So if he didn't change course in his career, you could imagine yourself where you are if you stick what you're doing 10 years from now and see if you like it or maybe want to change course. Good stuff. And that wraps up Breather show on all kinds of, I told you it was going to be a wide-ranging tidbits of advice about health optimization, life optimization, biohacking, fun stuff. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to the show. We would love your feedback at getoveryourselfpodcast@gmail.com. And we would also love if you could leave a rating and a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a hassle. You have to go to desktop iTunes, click on the tab that says ratings and reviews, and then click to rate the show anywhere from 5 to 5 stars. And it really helps spread the word so more people can find the show and get over themselves, because they need to. Thanks for doing it.